Do you think Marquez is just going for like the longest or most unmemorable titles in the world? Like I can never keep them straight. Well, I mean, he had A Very Old Man with Enormous Wings. He had Love in the Time of Cholera. 100 Years of Solitude is probably the easiest one. But yeah, it's sometimes hard for me to remember all of them. But it's, I don't know. You'll have to explain it to me if there's, or maybe it's just a stylistic thing. I don't know.
Or he got paid by the word.
So today is the most handsomest man in the world, if I got that correct.
No. Handsomest Drowned Man in the world.
Darn it! I knew I'd forget something. All right. Translated by Gregory Rabassa.
Yeah. Woo, 2 thumbs up. 2 gold stars.
So written in 1968, but translated into English in 72 by Gregory Rabassa. We return to the world of magical realism and Marquez. It's been a while.
Yeah, the Enormous Wings, right? Is that the last one of his we did?
Indeed. And our Colombian friend, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, is very prolific. He's had a lot of writings, and this is definitely up there in terms of very popular. And when we look at this story, it's kind of interesting because I would say it's got a lot of the DNA of his writings. We start out with like discovering this drowned body, this thing washing ashore. And if you remember A Very Old Man, it was like we discover an angel coming down. And if you remember 100 Years of Solitude, it's got a very famous opening line with, many years later, as he faced the firing squad, Colonel Aurelio Buendia was to remember that distant afternoon when his father took him to discover ice. It's like a shtick of his, I think, where we discover with the characters and learn and create at the same time.
Indeed. The problem here with this story, though, that I struggled with in the beginning was that this is so ambiguous, where those stories we had some context to the story. To hear, like, we're just in a random fishing village. We don't know where we are, what their culture is. They're little people, I'm guessing, because they keep referencing of how large this dead body they've found. There's not a lot to go on. So there's the air of mystery, but there's nothing driving me to want to know or the unfolding of this mystery.
Yeah. It's like you said, like, okay, so the town, are they Lilliputans, right? They don't have flowers. Like, what? Like, how dare you, village, not have flowers? That's like my favorite part. And it's just like a small, like you said, fishing village of, I think they said 20 or so houses. It's setting the stage to be kind of like that quaint town where we all know each other, right? And for something different to come along, we're all going to investigate it as a town. Like, there's not even like really characters. Like, did you notice that? Like, the main character is just like the dead body. It's women discover, the men go and search, the children go and play. Like, there's no central focus. It's a we. It's a pronoun reacting to this object floating ashore.
And that's where I struggle to identify with this whole town, because a lot of times we had the individuals in his other writing, and now we have a town as like an individual. And the town doesn't even agree with itself of what they're going to do with this body. As we see it kind of unfold in the story, the men and the women are kind of having a contest of like who loves it the most, and the men get mad and jealous. It's very odd.
Well, and they even describe the body as flotsam as first, which is a very specific term about when you discover something at sea. And the children like lay claim to it and start like playing with it, burying it in the sand. Like,
yeah, they do that over and over and over, which I, as a child, you know, that is kind of the fascination. You know, I saw a dead body for the first time when I was 12 years old.
Well, and then the men, like, they go out on their search to find, okay, well, was he from another nearby village? Okay, is anybody missing a body? and the women start making clothes for him. They give him names like Esteban. Like, they start to almost like induct him into their village, I would say.
See, I felt like that they almost made him like he was an angel or a god or something, because they say he is the most handsomest ever. He's the biggest ever in all ways. And like the women's are like, woo, Esteban. And he's the only Esteban. Like, that name is retired now, like a jersey in the NBA or something. Like, nobody can be named Esteban ever again. They're putting him up on a pedestal for sure. I didn't feel like they were adopting him into the village until the very, very end of the story.
It's like the children saw him as a plaything, right? Like, they're literally burying him in the sand and such. The women saw a way to, I don't know, would you describe it maybe as nurturing, like the way they made him clothes, the way they dressed him up and cleaned him up? And the men viewed him as, I don't know, is it a utility thing? Like a thing that we have to go do? This gives us purpose. This gives us a journey to go out and seek, the foreign lands to find out where this man came from. Like each, I don't know, I don't want to call it class, but there's the children, the women, and the men. And each group kind of like projects onto him something that is important in their lives. Like it's almost like kind of like, like when you go to eulogies, at funerals, we want to remember the deceased, the past, what they meant to us. And a lot of times it's very honorific, remembering the best parts of them and celebrating their life, right? And this village is almost doing the same thing where they're like being very honorific and projecting the best parts of their own lives onto him even.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. I guess for me, I kept thinking of who's this person going to end up being to them? And they put him in such high regard, and then they just like let him go, or I guess they gave him a proper burial for their culture of what they thought was proper. They keep over and over and over again in the story, just like, he's so big, he's so handsome, he's the best singer, he's the best dancer, he's, all the girls would want to marry him, and he's always going to be welcome here. Please come back to us when you want to visit. And like they almost make him like he's alive again, like he wasn't this dead body. And I didn't understand where this was coming from. Like, are these little people? Like, are we in fantasy land here? It was very surreal for me.
And that can be part of the magical realism side of things. Did you notice when the men came back, they're like, nope, nobody claimed him. The women, I thought, were kind of happy, like, because he's ours now, in a sense. We can claim him. And the men are like, oh, it's just women being women. And then it's when they like saw his face that they finally are like, oh, like, I can see the beauty in this man. And that's like only then did they finally kind of like start to accept him in a sense. Yeah,
it was kind of cool that broke the sexist stereotypes there, and the men were like, oh, okay, we get it now, and we're okay with that. We don't feel as intimidated or threatened or jealous of this dead body.
Well, it's kind of like, I think they said it, and it's translated, right? So I don't know exactly what it translates from in terms of Spanish, but it said something to the effect of how he didn't ask to be this beautiful, or he didn't ask to be this way. And it's kind of like, what does that mean about themselves, right? Like, are there shortcomings? No pun intended with the short.
Yeah.
But are there things that they're lacking, and they're like, we didn't ask for this. Like, don't judge me on the things that I didn't ask for. Here, everyone's judging this man for the things that he does have. His height. He's so handsome. But he didn't ask for that, right? Can we really be jealous and blame him for that when these are things that are kind of out of our control?
Yeah, now I think about it, I guess, also, I think that at one point they said he would never pick to be that. He'd never choose to be that big because it would be so hard to move, and, it'd be so cumbersome. And why would he pick this? And they almost felt sorry for him, I think, towards the end of the story as well. So yeah, that makes a little bit more sense.
I just like, to me, it kind of came together with this quote when they're, like you said, they're doing their funeral rites. Like, if you want to know a culture, how do they celebrate marriages, and how do they celebrate what are their funeral rites, right? So they don't have much space, so they have to throw them out to sea is what this town does. And while they're marching, I think, is when I grabbed this quote, while they fought for the privilege of carrying him on their shoulders along the steep escarpment up by the cliffs, men and women became aware for the first time of the desolation of their streets, the dryness of their courtyards, the narrowness of their dreams as they faced the splendor and beauty of their drowned man. So it's kind of like, theirs is a village, it's a small fishing village. I get that. Like, you don't have a lot of excess when you have such a small town sometimes, right? And they don't even have flowers. They don't have adornments. They don't have what sounds to me like beauty. Like, they all celebrate how Chad-like this man is. And now that they're celebrating it, they're living out the honorific, moments of this man that they project onto him. They say, what can we control? What should we be doing ourselves? Like, how should we be improving our towns, ourselves? What should we be celebrating? And it's like this man almost gives them, through their own projection, a view of how they could actually make their lives better. I would say, like, they They could work on bringing flowers from other villages. They could work on making nicer clothes for themselves. And I think it gives them hope. It gives them a reason for the change, a reason to see, oh, we could make this better, is kind of how I viewed what this man did to the town.
After reflecting now and having our discussion, I think that he was their muse, and through his death, they gained life. And now they know what are the important things in life. It's not just to fish. It's not just to survive and subsist and just go through. You need to have more. The art, the beauty, writing, painting, those things, loving, laughing. That's what really matters. And I think that he gave that to them. And that sacrifice, they don't take that lightly. And they're like, hey, this is important and we should have more, because he had everything and he lost it. And now he's given it to us.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if even my comments were too individualistic focused, like as I hear you talking, like this man brought them together. Like they all claimed him as family. So he was the man that made the town a family, right? Like to be happy is to be together, almost in a sense. And he's the one that gave them community even. And I think there's those things that bring people together. And it was this man to finally do it for this village, as they're like, okay, maybe we can be better, but not only that, we can be better together even, is one way to interpret it.
Esteban!
I do like the ending though, right? They sent him out to sea without an anchor so that he could return. That was a cute ending. Come on.
Oh yeah, it feels like a happy ending for the whole thing being about them finding this, quote, grotesque dead body, sort of.
Well, he's not that bad. I mean, the children played with him and buried him in sandcastles.
No, he's the handsomest dead body ever.
The most handsomest drowned man in the world. By Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Fun story. I would say, for the way that I like to relate to stories, it was maybe more symbolic. I don't know. It didn't feel as organic, but I know this is like one of those writers that like it just clicks with some people. You know what I mean? And this, I like him, but this wasn't the story that clicked for me, I guess I would say.
I would agree with that. I guess I just struggled with, I didn't get the answer to the mystery, and I had a feeling I wouldn't, but I guess I just wanted a little bit more information of filling in those gaps of that magical realism. It was too much realism.
Dude, he's out there to meet John from that Zora Neale Hurston story where they sent John out to sea, John Redding to the sea.
Oh, that's dark. Maybe he is John. He's not Esteban.
John and Esteban hanging out at sea.
John and Esteban. That sounds like a band name.
All right, guys. My name is Ben Una. Thanks for spending time with us. Hit that subscribe button. Playlist down below of other Gabo talks that we've had. Peace out.
Peace.